It was evening then, the first stars waking from their daily slumber, waking early, it seemed, to see Gavael draw near the great city. He rode at the heart of Azag's company, and their heart he appeared to be. Like ribs, his fellow mercers spiralled around him and protected Gavael in their midst. Yet, even at peace, Gavael was better than any two of his fellows. In but a moment, he could charge through their neat lines to their fore and serve as a solitary van. At the gates they dismounted, and the Brightier welcomed them to his city. Great numbers lined the streets, eager to see the arrival of the heroes, and great colours there would have been, too, had the people the cloths to spare. No banners were strung, no wine was drunk, but celebration hung over them all. At last, here were the ones whose means would restore Lakencorp to its glory. For too long had Stariak been quiet, too long had Nedayak been loud. "Our thanks, good sirs," the Brightier said, "for answering our call. You must be weary from your travels. Come rest a while and eat with us. We can make our plans come morn." Through the streets the party wound to cheerful clamour. Gavael turned to follow his commander, and turning, saw the lady, Thalia, stepping among the merchant crowd. Though shadows fell across her face, they did not dim the light within her. She was beautiful and poised, regal in an unregal town. With fluid grace she followed with the merchants, and joined them in the hall. Not once at dinner did Gavael's gaze falter from Thalia. Those around could clearly see the mirrored light between them. Always had Gavael shone brightly, his armour freshly polished, but now it gleamed true silver in the torchlight, a counterpoint to her radiance. Anyone who saw them together could see plainly how well suited they were, how their twinned laughter wove like the sweetest music, how they danced as though they were moved by one mind. For all the riches Lakencorp had once housed, for all that it would house again, none were as beautiful to look upon as Gavael and Thalia. One day, Azag led half of his company out of Lakencorp, with Gavael riding beside him. It was Magan who saw the flapping banners first, and he quickly gave up the cry. Azag turned to where he pointed across the great looping plain, and there he saw their armour glinting, and wondered why it was that Gavael had not warned them of their foe. His eyes were keenest of them all, and he had been known to hear the trespass of mice long before any hunter knew where they dwelt. It seemed now to Azag and to others of the company that Gavael had ceased to serve them the way he had previously done. No one need ask where his attention now lay, but dissatisfied murmurs drifted through the mercers and came to flutter by Gavael's keen ear. They spoke of Thalia and how she had charmed him. "She speaks with Patinia's tongue," they fretted, lamenting to Merez and what he planned for them. Gavael began to worry what the mercers might do. Each one had killed, in battle and in secret, and he feared what they might plan against Thalia if they continued in this way. And so, in secret, Gavael brought Thalia to Erech. There in the mountains, the fortress overlooked Lakencorp, the city just visible as a glittering circle, where the sun struck the channels by day, and little lanterns winked by night. Though Gavael returned to the van and beat his opponent's back with such swift blows and strength of arm that none could come within 10 paces of the line, still the company muttered that he was not as he had been. From the fortress, Thalia could watch the mercers ride out each day, and know when, as was his turn, Gavael would depart, and when he returned. Each day after his return, he took the narrow path to the cleft, the great gorge that cut through the mountains and protected Erech from its fall, and visited Thalia. "A curse," the mercers whispered, "that summons him to her. It must need renewing each evening," they reasoned, "if that's why she calls him." With such thoughts, the mercers began to plan how they might save their friend from Thalia's embrace, and so save themselves from Patinia's. At first, they asked Gavael to stay with them. There were plain lions who might prowl too near, or bears that would come from the mountains, they told him. pretending to be afraid. But Gavael shook his head and told them they were safe, and that they had their weapons besides. Again they tried, begging that he stay, for a storm was coming and only his eyes could penetrate the darkness should Ea seek a surprise second attack. They cannot do so, Gavael answered, for they would not risk attacking themselves in the darkness. With that, he climbed to Eric, bearing warm blankets to protect Thalia from the storm's chill. Each evening they tried, and each evening they failed to keep Gavael from visiting his love. At length, they struck upon an idea they thought sure could not fail. A single bridge spanned the cleft, made from rope and wood. It stretched high above the river below. If the bridge was cut, they reasoned, then Gavael would not be able to cross to Eric to visit Thalia. So their plan was hatched. Whilst Gavael travelled with half of the company away from Lakencorp, a handful of mercers traipsed up the winding path into the mountains and set to work cutting the tethers of the bridge. They were halfway through their work when they heard a noise. A snorting snuffle, followed by a low growl. They turned and saw to their horror a bear had come to inquire what they were doing. Convinced it was some fell demon sent by Thalia to stop them, they attacked. But the bear was big and wise to the sharp claws that men wielded. It swiped at them with its great paw and sent them tumbling into the cleft, their work unfinished. Come evening, Gavael returned with Azag and his company, and alone set off along the mountain path to Eric. There was no sign of the bear, or the men it had thrown to their deaths. No sign either that the tethers of the bridge had been cut. Gavael stepped out across the cleft, and it was not long before he heard the ropes fray. Alarmed, he ran back to the side he had left from. If the bridge fell, he could call for another to be made and rescue Thalia from her bower. But as his foot landed against the wooden plank, the rope tore and slipped like a snake from the high bank. Gavael grabbed at the bridge, the loose rope twisting around him. It twisted tight and drew him near, as though it might serve to protect him from the cleft's hungry mouth. It was there, the next morning, the mercers found him. The rope about his neck, his swollen fingers still trying to prise it free, as he had scrabbled at the wooden planks. They dragged his stiff body from the gorge and carried it down to their camp. There, the mercers lamented the loss of their captain and buried him with fine honours at Lakencorp. But it was bitter to them to remain in the place where so beloved a member of their company had died. One by one they left, packing their tents and setting out across the plain in search of new pay, always carrying safe with them the knowledge that they had known one of the finest of men in their day.